America's toxic import from Greece, the Golden Dawn movement. And when most Americans are reminded of Greece, it's usually through an inflammatory headline in a paper decrying its debtor status, and more recently the attempt to fleece bank account holders in Cyprus for monies owed banks in the European Union. But the real story of the tragedy of the Great Recession, as bad as the economics has been, has yet to come into focus. I'm speaking of the Golden Dawn movement. This is the Greek right-wing extremist group and political party which has gained considerable strength in that country and which is now spreading its tentacles to other areas, and that includes here in the United States. Are they dangerous? Only if the terms neo-Nazi and fascist carry that emotional sense of urgency, yes. This group rejects those labels, but makes use of Nazi symbolism and involves itself in brown shirt street gang attacks on immigrants and on university students, vandalizes Jewish cemeteries. Yes, I will say that they are dangerous. Our telephone interview today will connect us with a particularly important source on today's subject. We're going to be speaking with Yanis Aktimon of Void Network Collective, and we're fortunate to find him today by phone in New York City, where he's visiting prior to a speaking and organizing tour, really a wake-up visit through Texas and California to May of this year. I first met Yanis shortly after Occupy's Ozu County Park protests shocked Americans. They and I were still trying to sort out how an extremely effective and explosive populist movement could happen on our soil at that time. Well, a lot has passed under the bridge by this time. You can catch that interview in the archives section of 15 Minutes of Fact that's shown here on WGRNradio.com. As far as today's interview, I will invite our guest to explain what is happening in Greece, as well as give us ample warning as to just what might happen here in the United States. So welcome to the show today, Yanis.
Hello, Jerry, from me and from behalf of Void Network people. How are you? Everything fine?
I'm very fine, and I thank you for being on the show with us again.
It's always a pleasure doing things together, my dear friend.
If I need to hire a PR firm, Yanis, you are going to be the first person I'm putting on that.
Okay.
I know that one of the main concerns to the people in Greece is the specter of fascism. In the U.S., we throw that word around as if it means nothing, but has some very real import to the original victims of it in Europe. And today, that term is being used to describe the advent of the Golden Dawn movement. So please take a moment and educate us on this.
Well, the Golden Dawn movement is not just fascist, it's a neo-Nazi thing that started taking place in Greece of early 1980s. It's collaborated with what is so-called the Nazi international thing all over the world. If you read some magazines of that era, you will see how they define themselves and how they speak about all these key figures of Nazism like Goebbels, S, or Adolf Hitler. In the moment, they are pretending that they are just patriots, that they try to support the country after all these great problems, the great financial problems that has at the moment inside European Union. But truly speaking, what they really want is to create an extreme totalitarian fascist society, which is going to be completely racist and completely against any diversity or any different view and vision. This is a very dangerous matter. It's a very delicate and dangerous matter, since under the rhetoric, so many Greeks who are in unemployment and they feel anger of what is happening the past 3 years with the economic crisis and the European debt crisis in general, they started believing their lies and voting them in the Greek parliament. At the moment, on polls, Golden Dawn is supposed to have something like 11% of the Greek population, which means that if tomorrow there was some kind of voting, 11 to 100 Greeks that will vote for Golden Dawn, which is extremely strange and peculiar if you understand what really Golden Dawn is and what Nazis did in Greece during the World War II, where many villages were burned down and many people died, thousands.
Well, Yanis, we all know that. But what I find interesting is that this is a phenomenon that isn't happening only in Greece. There are extreme elements here in the United States. Trust me, no matter what election comes about, 10% of our population will vote for something extremely contrary to what we call American values. That you're experiencing that in Greece doesn't mean that it's not being experienced elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and they try to expose themselves somehow as patriots and everything all over the world, and somehow to create connections inside other countries and with other people in according to create a more general movement that will support the racist view and racist attitude all over the world.
Well, there will always be people attracted to that, and I know that there's a phrase being used now that's called new totalitarianism. Now, I understand that this is even a bigger issue than Golden Dawn. Golden Dawn is an aspect of it.
Yes, it is.
I also understand. And the good news is that because of people like you and people here and around the world that do not welcome this sort of neo-Nazi racism, that there's a backlash, which I understand you believe constitutes a deepening and a broadening of the role of democracy and a radically improved approach to the economic system. So elaborate on that for me, please.
Yes, definitely we need a deepening of democracy all over the world, a creation of a people, a populist movement, which somehow will be very conscious of what is going on. It would be having as a part inside the movement the term, as I called, the collective individuals, the people who are very open to society and in the same time they try to well educate themselves, help the others, and support all the under all efforts the creation of the opportunity of a society that is not depending its role on the decisions of big bankers and big multinational corporations, but on alternative assemblies, let's say, which are going to decide on everything in a very democratic and very righteous somehow way. This is the idea that at least me and the people of Void Network having what going to be the answer on this new totalitarianism thing. The new totalitarianism thing is an approach that tries to embrace every single activity of the population inside the phasma of economy. And this is somehow something that alienating the people, alienating the populations from their own true essence, which is not fighting each other for a piece of bread or just following some kind of big leaders of corporations and banks. But the very essence of the populations, of the people, is to support each other, create free communities, alternative communities, a parallel society that exists on its own and it's not dependable on the decisions of the big interests.
Well, this prompts me to remember one of my favorite American geniuses, Buckminster Fuller. He said that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. Rather, he counsels us that to change something, you simply build a better model that makes the existing model obsolete. Is this the future path for activism? Yes,
in my opinion, and in Void Network's opinion, this is exactly the future path of activism. What we need to do is not just struggling each other under certain abstracted ideologies, but to support each community, each people, its own culture that is ready to resist against the flow of this big current of new totalitarianism that is trying to embrace Europe and so many other parts of the world at the moment. It's very important on consisting that this kind of movement has to be very much based on its own thing, on its own ideas, and on its own production somehow. This kind of movement, this kind of movement needs to have ways to survive apart and let's say away from the rest of the development structure, which is completely based on the big corporation thing.
Okay, I've got that. I think any of us listening who have any type of experience with Occupy realize that bad business and big government and bad business, which are synonymous with each other.
We need something even more democratic than Occupy, something which is even a bigger and better example. And this example has to be beyond any kind of borders, and this example has to be the development of a structure of assemblies that will support each other in all different ways.
Well, one question then for you, Yanis. You've been here in New York City for a bit. You've met with people, and you're going to be traveling to Texas and California. What is it that you're encountering here that gives you hope, and why are you heading off to Texas and California?
Well, I think that there are a lot of people in U.S. and in other places of the world. I told you that I'm not particularly interested of the border thing. I think that we are all people and we can unite under certain aspects. Since, for example, the multi-corporational interests are international, why not the people act internationally in a very deep and direct, I'm saying, democratic way? So, if you, for example, in the South or in Texas, there are so many people who are supporting the indigenous problems, who speaking about the cultures of emigration and the way that there is so much exploitation against these people in these areas. In California, there are still the aspects of the great countercultural movement that took place and shocked the whole of the world during the 60s and 70s. There are so many people you can meet, exchanging ideas, discuss, and develop new theories and approaches on the matter. Somehow, if at the end, finally, if there is a kind of a structure that is going to be built internationally, U.S. cannot be outside of the plan, neither North America.
Well, that's certainly a prediction which I believe is going to be coming true. When are you going to find yourself back in New York City, and where will people be able to meet with you, fans and fellow travelers like me? Give us an idea of where and when you'll be back.
On New York, I think I will be back on the middle of May to give some talks, some public talks on some spaces. They are not yet completely arranged. These certain places is going to be a bookstore. I think that the most interesting case is blue stockings. I think there's going to be a public talk on blue stockings on mid of May.
Very good.
Which I think, Jerry, you're going to inform to the people of your program, I suppose.
I will likely annoy a lot of my friends on Twitter and my friends on Occupy and make sure that you have an audience when you're there.
Yeah.
So, Yanis, I want to thank you on behalf of our 15 Minutes of Fact listeners.
And me, I want to thank you on behalf of myself and Void Network friends. You've been very helpful.
And I hope to continue to be so. Now, for those of you out there who might want to reach Yanis personally, let me share his email. It is Raman, R-A-M-A-N, 1723 @yahoo.com. He can also be found on Facebook as Yanis, Y-A-N-N-I-S Rauzos, R-A-O-U-Z-E-O-S. And this is Jerry Ashton of 15 Minutes of Fact here on WGNradio.com. Thanking my listeners for stopping by, and thanking Yanis for alerting us as to the dangers of the Golden Dawn movement and the antidotes which are available and which will soon arrive at a city near you. Be sure to search me out, where I blog at the Huffington Post, and follow me on Twitter as well as @WrittenOffUSA.
Thank you.
Jerry Ashton here, signing off until the next time. Thank you again, Yanis.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you.